I wanted to talk very specifically about the energy bill crisis that is being manufactured here in the UK today. And I say energy bill crisis because I think we have to be very clear. This is not an energy crisis. That's a manufactured thing. This is about bills. So it is a specific stress being targeted at ordinary people and ordinary homeowners who can no longer afford to live in their own country. From a military or strategic perspective, if you want to undermine security of a nation, you will attack their water security, their energy security, and their food security. These are fundamental securities required by a people in order for them to be controlled. We're seeing many of those things now here in the UK. At a more micro level, the stressors take the form of uncertainty. What ordinary bill payers are finding in the UK is that the certainty they had around budgeting and being careful with their finances and having a direct debit plan structured with their energy supplier, that now means nothing. We have people who are in tears, who don't know what to think or do, or don't know, they're in a state of panic because energy suppliers have gone into their bank accounts and taken an amount of money, any amount they really felt like. Of course, the energy companies will tell people, well, this is structured financing in order to better prepare yourself for the coming bill hike in the next few weeks and months. But fundamentally what it is energy companies reaching into your pocket and taking your money through the direct debit system that you used to be able to rely on. And that's what's so upsetting for people. There is also this sleight of hand being used in the media to talk of it. So when we just learned that by January, energy bills could rise as high as £4,300, the mainstream started talking about how that was £400 more than was anticipated, £400 more than was expected. That's a sleight of hand, because that only works if you bought into the idea that £4,200 was an okay amount to charge an average family with an income of around £20,000 annual salary, that £400 was more than that. It was never okay. None of these extraordinary amounts were ever okay. It's not £400 more. It's daylight robbery from people who can no longer afford to live in their own country. So you are getting the combined threats of a strategic attack on kind of nation state level security. Then you're getting the more micro level targeted feelings of uncertainty, of being unsure, of feeling panicked, of feeling overwhelmed by bills that you know you're not going to be able to pay, and you're not going to have any money left to look after your granddad or your poorly husband or whatever. And then you have the sleight of hand of the media suggesting it's just a £400 increment added to. It's not. It's daylight robbery, and it's built at a level that most people simply can't afford to pay. As things stand, millions of people won't be able to afford this winter. And just as was never spoken about during lockdown, millions of people won't make it through because rationally they'll decide it is not worth the sheer act of determination to try and endure what they're being asked to withstand, which is more than someone without surplus funds or without the ability to earn more anywhere can endure. This will be an impossible winter for millions of people. So the thing I wanted to talk about was Don't Pay UK and why I support it. Now, I'm being called a right-wing activist for my support of Don't Pay UK, which is fine. I've been called much worse, including horse face, the white chicks, melted wheelie bin face. I've been called far worse things than that as well, but we don't need to go into those here. But they try by calling me a right-wing activist to dismiss what I'm saying. But I'm saying the same thing as many other people who probably find my views morally or politically abhorrent. We're saying the same thing. And that's because if you're just an ordinary decent person, you can see that none of this is actually okay. The people calling me those names are actually former colleagues of mine, people who I used to work alongside or used to work actually for me. So it doesn't really matter what the labels they are. So Don't Pay UK, it says that don't pay your energy bills by October the 1st. And what this is, there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, about what this is. This is not people just shutting off paying for things that they've been given. This is not people saying, I'm not paying you for what I've had. This is about 1 million people signing up. You just go online, Don't Pay UK, and you sign up, if you mean it, to say that from the 1st of October, you will cancel your direct debit in order to stand with the people, the millions of people who aren't going to make it through the winter or who are right now in tears, trying to work out how to work this out with their energy supplier. Have you ever tried to ring an energy supplier these days? Have you ever tried to get an answer on the phone? When you talk to them about direct debits or cutting off your direct debits, they tell you, oh, well, we'll have to put you on a higher tariff. And they make you more confused. No one's actually there on the end of the phone to help you. But this is a way. This is a solution to the problem. Don't Pay UK want to get 1 million signatures to say that you will sign up, that you will stop your direct debits on the 1st of October. And the idea behind this is not about non-payment. The idea behind this, to my understanding, is that with 1 million signatures, it forces the hand of the energy companies, of whomever would like to call themselves government at the moment, and that seems to be everybody in hiding or on holiday, and it forces the regulator to the table to sort this crap out, because this is not sustainable. The other thing that's not being talked about is this notion that things will somehow return to normal. This idea that, well, this is a weird glitch. We had lockdown, we had COVID. Now we've got the energy weirdness, and then we've got the drought, and so we've got all of this. But things will go back, won't they? Yes, eventually, yeah, rationing at the airlines, that will go back, won't it? No, nothing's going back to normal. And in the absence of a long-term solution to the national level security attacks that are being carried out on us with our food security, our energy security, and our water security, what we can do is take immediate action at a micro level, which stops the uncertainty for other people and will provide some kind of hope for 1 million homeowners or so that won't make it through this winter. And that's why I support Don't Pay UK. And I hear you. I hear those who know everything. I hear the men on their YouTube accounts who've never been out on the road in their lives, who've never schlepped it around the backwaters or the dodgy areas that I have, telling me, well, Don't Pay UK, it's a con, it's a trick, it's Soros behind it, it's Clinton behind it, it's the dark hand of evil behind it, it's the trick that's going to take us into digital currency. Okay, you carry on with that, but please stop sending me emails about it. Because we're going to end up in a world where there's digital currency anyway, and we will all have to move to some kind of defendable space if we wish to continue with a cash-based currency and controlling our own lives. That's a whole other conversation. But currently, we have about 5 weeks before we start to lose people to this crisis. And the one answer that makes sense immediately is this, which is your signature to say that you will cancel your direct debit on the 1st of October. And even if you don't buy into that, that's fine. No one's asking me to be involved in this. They're probably freaking out that I'm actually supporting them, because who wants that kind of right-wing person associated with something we're trying to do for the public good? Can right-wing people actually be good? But what you can definitely say is that by doing this, you're collectivizing risk. And by collectivizing risk, those that are able to withstand risk are helping others, saying, don't worry, I got you. I'm standing for you. I'm stand in front of you, which is something I've always promised to do for anybody. Just give me a shout and I'll stand in front of you because I fear nothing. And there's a thing about risk as well. People are always asking me, how do you do this? How do you go there? How do you sleep on Skid Row? How do you blah, blah, blah? Why do you end up in the middle of Black Lives Matter parades when people out there actually want to skin you alive? And it's because I fear nothing. And it's not that you have to fear nothing, but it's about your ability to handle risk. And if you are the sort of person, as I am, who says, bring it, I'll cancel my direct debit, I'll pay for what I use and what I'm doing, but I'm not letting you take money straight out of my pocket, and I'm going to make a stand because I'm not letting you make this lady be in tears at the end of a long shift, or that gentleman who's worked shift and overtime not be able to afford to live in this country, which is actually his country. The people who are being targeted with this are ordinary Brits who work bloody hard but can't afford to live here, whilst others who don't can, and that can't be right. So if you're prepared to take an element of risk, and there will be risk to yourself, if you're not, you don't want to be getting involved in this if you're on a prepayment meter. You don't want to be getting involved in this if you've got multiple other issues at hand. This is for people who want to take risk in order to front up to these energy companies, to the regulator, to the government that we don't have, and say, no, this isn't going to happen. We aren't going through this. We're not doing this. This is the equivalent of the poll tax protest. And this is going to require 1 million people to help push this through. And I'm in. And it's fine to me if you're not. And more importantly, if you feel that you can't cope with this, don't have to be in. Or maybe you think it's all a dark plot by George Soros. Great, you don't have to be in. But I'm simply explaining it in slow terms so that people understand where I'm coming from. And that's really all I'm trying to say. There's a few other things as well, if I may. Number one, no one has the right to just take money from you. That was never an okay thing. I understand that direct debit was brought in and it was seen as simplifying and whatever, but no one has the right to just cut. It's the equivalent of someone coming up and just walking into your home and going into your little money jar in your kitchen and taking it. That's not okay, not at any level. Any provider who's providing you with something should tell you what they've provided you, how much it was, and you should be able to have a conversation with them about what you can afford to pay and when. It's not okay for people just to take your money, and no one should try to trick you into thinking that that is okay, because it isn't. Number two, just to reiterate, things aren't going back to normal. This is all headed down a path which many of you might not be necessarily on board with yet, but if, like me, you believe there is going to be a new world system for everything, you see where this is all headed. It's about ousting people from their homes, about removing ownership of anything, about removing your freedom to own a home or own a car or to travel. The idea is eventually you'll be completely dependent on the state and own nothing. As for happiness, who can say? The other thing I say to critics, it's fine if you want to come on and call me names, but I guess my challenge to you is, please tell me your better idea. Please tell me your better solution, and make it very crystal clear in the same way that I've tried to do here. You go on to Don't Pay UK, you pledge that you will not continue your direct debit after the 1st of October. You accept that there is personal risk, and you accept that you're doing this because this is not okay. I want to hear your solution. I want you to share your solution so that if people prefer your solution, they can use it. So don't just come up with criticisms. Don't bang on as if you're some member of the Illuminati and are best friends with Soros and Clinton and know what they're up to. Tell me your better solution, because it's very much like being on The Apprentice. When you have an idea, you tell the team what you're going to do. You're the one that stepped up because they've lost every other week and it's time for someone to win. And then people point out to camera that your idea is a bad idea, but they don't have a better one. Come up with a better one and put it on here. And most importantly of all, whether you want to get involved with this, whether you don't, whether you agree with me, whether you don't, whether you think we're heading to a new world system of things or you don't, whether you agree with me that these are national level attacks on our food security, our energy security, and on our water security, and that we are going to be forced out, whether you agree with me or not. What I can tell you for certain is that I remain relentlessly optimistic. And the reason for that is because of so much time I've spent on the road, 10 years nearly, 5 years being silenced in my own country, not allowed to say a word, is that I've never seen our side so strong. I've never seen our side become so determined to help each other be okay. Lockdowns really separated out, as I would call it, the wheat from the chaff. The people who would stand for something from those who would not, who just sought to comply and will try and comply with these bills and can probably afford to pay them, so they're all right, so it doesn't matter about the others. But there is a growing majority that recognise that's not okay. It's not okay for me to be okay, but everyone else to be screwed. And we're the best of us. And anytime you're crying in your kitchen because you don't know what's going to happen, I can promise you and reassure you, you're not on your own. And even if you feel helpless, the number of us out here who are with you and who are willing to help you is huge. And you can rely on us and you can call on us and you will find us on the road. You'll hopefully find me at the front, at the pointy end of the spear. I also know that whilst you feel alone, you're not. And I say this to the ordinary British people, is that you have every right to be able to afford to live in your own country. We are not alone. We are many, and we are stronger together. Fear not. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.